Sometimes when things go wrong, you can't blame life. Cause when you shot your shot, what was your aim like? What were you targeting? Cause if it ain't right, and you still go with it, then that is on you. It's on you, it's on you, it's on you.
What's going on, you guys? This is Robbie Singer and Sam here, and you are listening to the Mindset Rebooted podcast.
And if you are a first-time listener, thank you so much for stopping by. Here on the Mindset Rebooted podcast, we like to have conversations that help us to elevate the way we think.
So if you get any value from this episode, please share with one person so we can help more people.
Today, we're going to be talking about how you cannot expect what you do not inspect. Again, you cannot expect what you do not inspect.
What does that mean?
I'll tell you what it means. I had a chief in the Navy who said that to me, and I had to ask him for a clarification. So, Chief, well, I know you retired as a senior, but by the way, if you're checking this out, thank you so much for the golden nuggets that you dropped on us. So what does that mean? It means that a lot of us have expectations. We want people to do a certain way. We have certain outcomes that we want, but we never actually lay out the goals and objectives that are needed, and we don't do follow-ups, and we don't make sure that the process is always being improved. However, we have this false sense of, oh yeah, things are just supposed to happen the way I want them to happen. And so how do you actually expect that? It's not a real expectation, or it's not one that you should have, because anytime you have a goal and objective, the only way for you to make sure it's being met is for you to do checks along the way. That's where we have KPIs and things like that, right? That's where we have
Key performing indexes for KPIs, by the way.
That's where we have those different things. That's where we do trainings with people. That's where we impart understanding by letting people know why we have certain things. That's where we do weekly checks and make sure certain things are done. That's why when someone says that they did something, we trust but verify. These are all different things that help us meet our objectives in the end. It's because we're doing the necessary work to make sure things come to fruition. For example, if you have a spreadsheet doesn't just update itself. If you have a tracker is only as good as the person who's updating it. So make sure that if you have an expectation, you are being active and making sure your goals come to fruition.
And this reminds me of a saying that one of my mentors told me is, what gets tracked gets measured. And so it falls into this: what is the goal? And if for example, going back to fitness, that's where the mentor taught this to me. Hey, Rami, you're trying to lose weight? Well, if you ain't tracking what you're eating, you're not tracking how much you're exercising, how are we gonna be able to measure our success? How are we gonna be able to measure our progress or our lack of progress towards our success? You need to track, you need to inspect. It's simple, but it's tedious. It almost feels tedious, like, to have to do all that tracking. Or we leave the fitness side, go into the work side. Hey man, did you mow the lawn? Yeah, you did. Okay, cool. It's tedious for me to go out there and inspect it to make sure you did mow the lawn. You know what I'm saying? We're laughing about it, but simple stuff like that. And I want to tell, like, if we were working a warehouse, hey, did you receive freight? Is everything stored already? And your receiver or whoever's in charge of your warehouse says, yeah, we got it take care of. Trust you, but I also need to verify. Just do a quick walkthrough. I don't need to go over all the details of the walkthrough. I just need to walk it just to verify that it is good to go.
That's the part that like Rami said, it's the tedious work that makes us say, you know what, whatever. But fortunately, we live in a day where we have technological advancements.
Yes.
Make those work for you. It'll be a more efficient use of your time, right? And you will still be able to have realistic expectations because you can inspect it. So for example, I have dogs at the house, right? Unfortunately, I'm not the best dog trainer, okay? Now, for me, I expect for my dogs to not tear my house to shreds. And so the way I do that is I set up cameras, right? And the reason why I have those cameras inside the house when I leave is because I want to be able to see their activity. If I see their activity looking a little wild, I then hit on the camera, I speak to them like, hey, stop it. They usually listen and then they just stop, right? But I would not have been able to track their activity if I did not set up those in-house cameras to be able to monitor them. And so that's just something that I do as a measure to make sure that things are not torn to shreds. That's just a small example of how I might inspect.
Have you ever had a job where your office was, say, like a football field away from the site, and someone on site is like, hey, everything looks good to go, can you just come by to inspect it real quick? And you're like, fuck, I don't want to walk that far. Especially if it's a cold, rainy day, you don't want to do all that, right? So using technology, like you mentioned, whoever is reporting could just be like, status check, everything's good to go. By the way, a text photo. Boom, you just send me that text. Cool, looks good, appreciate it. We just saved a whole bunch of time of travel time, of the mental stress time with the weather and whatever, because it's getting cold out here right now. If you're in Sacramento, by the way. And so that's another example of using technology to be able to track things, report things, and still move forward.
I'll use another example using good old technology. So when I worked in construction, there was a scope that I was running. It was the fireproofing of some steel. Now, here's the thing. The steel could not be below a certain temperature. If it was too cold, that meant that we could not apply the fireproofing because it wasn't going to properly adhere. So what did I do? I got little devices. I forgot what they were called, but I pretty much attached them to the steel. What they did was they tracked the temperature. I didn't want to go out there when it was super cold, but there was an app that was attached to those devices, and I would be able to tell exactly what the temperature was outside and of the steel, so then I could report, hey, we can't properly apply this, or hey, we can properly apply it. That was just something that I also did without having to do all the tedious work of going to each and every piece of steel and figuring out manually exactly whether or not it was too cold or not.
I'm gonna throw you a quick question as a curveball question. So what if you don't work in construction, you're not on a job site? How does this benefit you if you're one of our listeners who don't have those physical labor examples?
In life, we all have some type of expectation, right? You expect that you're going to survive and make it to the next day because you expect that you're gonna eat, you expect that you're gonna whatever, you expect that you're gonna be able to go to sleep. It doesn't matter. Everybody has an expectation. And so the only way you can truly expect for your expectations to be met is you have to make sure certain things happen. So for example, if you're the everyday listener and you expect to make it to work on time the next day, but you also know that you yourself are not set up to just get up on your own, how do you expect to wake up on time if you don't set your alarm clock, right? Like that's just a basic example. I can't really expect that. It's not a real expectation. So what I need to do, I need to make sure before I go to sleep, hey, did I set my alarm for? Yes, my alarm is set and it's ready to go. Okay, cool. Now that's a prime example of how I can inspect that I'm good to go and I can expect for this to happen now.
You just reminded me something on top of that. It's also when it's things that are outside of my knowledge base, right? I can't ask someone to do something and expect them to meet my expectations if I don't even know what my expectations are.
True.
I need to set my own expectations, maybe get some advice or counsel from someone who's a knowledge expert. What's the term I'm looking for?
A subject matter expert.
Subject matter expert to tell me what to expect so I could hold that accountable to myself and the people I'm asking of it.
So essentially, in order to have expectations, we need to also inspect processes along the way. We need to understand goals and objectives, and we need to be realistic about things. If we don't know things, we need to ask clarifying questions, and we need to make sure that we do either the tedious work or we use technological advancements to help us along the way. But in either case, we need to trust but verify, and we can only expect what we inspect.
And I want to make a change to that trust but verify phrase. I want to change to trust and verify. Yeah.
Trust and verify.
I started saying that instead of the but part to other people. Because when I say like, hey, I trust you, but I gotta verify you, that but feels like pretty heavy.
Gotcha.
So if I say, hey man, I trust your work, I just gotta verify it real quick. Or like that, they're like, yeah, I get you, let's go. They're more amenable to us verifying it.
Well, there you have it. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we are going to trust and verify that you have subscribed to this podcast.
I don't know how we're gonna verify, but if the numbers increase, that's our verification.
That's a verification.
That's our milestone.
So that's it. Until next time, Mindset Rebooted.
Sometimes when things go wrong, you can't blame life. Cause when you shot your shot, what was your aim like? What were you targeting? Cause if it ain't right, and you still go with it, then that is on you.